In this relatively short video, I'm just going to preview some of the approaches to drawing the Gardner model that I'm going to be suggesting people take on Monday morning. So we'll have Pete in the studio and he'll be doing a variety of poses, and I'll be leading the approaches to drawing using initially, here's a first one. I'm just going to work with some photographs that I have of some young gardeners. I'm going to draw with a charcoal pencil. I've also got some of the pastel pencils, and I'm going to encourage you to start with a continuous line drawing. So that's the exercise where you don't take the pencil off the page and you try and explore your subject, perhaps from the top of the head down to the feet as quickly as possible, not lifting the pencil off the page, not just going around the outside, but trying to cross the figure wherever possible. This is just a great way to warm up. It'll also give you a very fluid drawing, and I suppose our subjects this week, with the Gardner model, are hopefully going to be dynamic, active, and this way of drawing will generate nice dynamic effects. And what I'm looking for in my first drawing here, just using the line, the outline, is something of the dynamism of this active pose. It's not often that my son took out a rake, so it's recorded here for posterity. So I'm just working with the line. It's an exploratory way of warming up, and my line's pretty shaky actually. I think you'll agree. I can now do a couple of things. That's a very shaky line. It took me a while to find a way in, but now I'm going to go back and I'm going to go for some much stronger, if you like, longer lines. I think I probably could have pressed not quite so hard, more gently on my first trip round. But now that I've got those guides, I'm going to go back with something a little bit more decisive and select from those many lines almost the single line that I think is much more articulate and representative of my subject. Because really, what am I trying to do? What are we always trying to do? We're trying to simplify and get the essence of what we're looking at. And to find a single line like that, I think is helpful. I can go further now, and this might be a second stage to the exercise. I'll look at my model with my eyes half closed, and just with a sort of pattern of hatching, I'm going to put in some of these dark shapes. He's out in the garden. This is genuine stuff, and the light is coming from above and sort of from the left. So a lot of these forms, arms, legs, head, I'm just putting a pattern of shadow down the right side of that figure, and I'll give him a shadow on the floor. So that just brings my figure together, and because it's a charcoal pencil, it's very nice just to smudge it a bit with your finger and work that in. So that's the first approach, continuous line, not lifting the pencil off the page, and then blocking in a pattern of tone. We can also reverse that approach. This is slightly more challenging. I'm going to now put down the pattern of tone just by sort of hatching some dark shapes. So this is going to be the same lad working at a wheelbarrow. We often have tears, I think, when there are wheelbarrows involved in modelling sessions, but I'll endeavour to get you a wheelbarrow on Monday. So I think those are the main shapes of He's got his head here, body there, shorts and legs down there with a bit of a wheelbarrow over here. So I'm just shading in some shapes. It's a kind of silhouette of the main forms. I could do what I did with the previous one and just work it with my finger. That's quite nice. Yeah, so it's a kind of silhouette, and I don't get absolutely everything, but with charcoal pencil it's nice to move things around. And then I can do two things. I can take an eraser and tidy that up, or I think it's actually more interesting to then try and introduce that decisive single line, continuous line. And many of the shapes, because I was just shading, as you saw, many of the shapes won't be that precise. So there, for example, I'm creating a new edge. The line isn't where the filled in shape was. And that is a good thing, because I'll end up with a much more, not just dynamic, but a drawing that'll have a lot more form to it. When the line and tone don't absolutely register, it gives you something which is less, I suppose, less fixed. You know, if you think of a way of drawing where you put down precise lines and then you just fill them in, that the result of that can be something quite static, quite fixed, maybe quite flat. Whereas if there isn't this exact registration between the first blocks of tone and the line, then we get more form, and I think basically a more interesting drawing, a less sort of predictable drawing. So don't worry if your shapes weren't exactly as they should have been. And again, this can be developed. You know, I think it'd be quite nice to have darker hair and see if there are any other areas to darken. And I'll also go for, should give him a spade as well, actually. I'll also go for an eraser and subtract a little bit. So I've got a sharpened plastic eraser, and there are places where I would like to really bring out the light on this left side. I mean, I think the figure works pretty well without too many refinements, but the wheelbarrow could do with a bit of help to bring out some of those lighter shapes. And it, you know, if I want to, in places, if some of those stray blocks of tone are really unhelpful, well, then I could just get rid of them. But I'm keeping some of them because I think they do. I should have put down a shadow here as well. So I think that, you know, they as I've been saying, contribute some dynamism. The next approach is similar to the last, but this time in colour, known in the trade as the Sarah Sandow method. I've got a picture of my daughter watering some plants in a green cardigan. So there's cardigan shape, and then here is long dress shape. Here is face, hands and feet shape. So you see, and then lastly a hair shape. And so you see that that's putting down colour shapes. I might do a little bit of grass as well. I've done it all just with colour. I think I would next work it a little bit. A amount of smudging. There's something of Renoir's approach in this as well, because these colours will mix, and I'm not going to worry about that. get a bit of a colour down, maybe something of a shadow shape. And then, as I did before, I'll draw into that with some lines. I could have used coloured lines as well. Let's see what happens. I'm working with the brown Conte pencil first. But as tends to happen with these approaches, the shapes have gone down first. And so the kind of definition that I introduce with my line, I mean, I think the dark brown line's pretty good at the moment. It goes with most of the other colours. I could always change it, you know, in certain places if I thought. A green line would be better because of the colour of the clothing, but as often happens with these approaches, because I've put down the colour shape and I'm introducing sort of retrospectively, I'm introducing the definition with the line, I'll probably be doing less defining. So my drawing will actually effectively be more abstracted, more simplified, hopefully more the essence of my subject. And it's a great way to work because you can be surprised. You can surprise yourself with what emerges on the basis of the first, I suppose, kind of instinctively drawn shapes. You'll find something has developed. And that's the beginning. I can go on building things up now. And because of putting down the rough pastel shapes, there will be various mixes going on. I'm on just an off-white page here, so I can build up the pastel and let some of the page show through. For that hand, I want to look at a bit of a negative shape. So a lot can be done, you know, just with the intensity of the pastel. I might get some shadows onto these legs just with the brown pencil. And we need a special colour for the watering can. So that's another way in. And lastly, of course, your old friend ink stick and wash, if we have time. The other thing I'll get you to try in the studio, and you can try this at home, would be to do some of these drawings, to take some of these approaches on top of sketches you did last week in the Secret Herb Garden, or if you had another garden reference. If you're able to make a photocopy of those sketches and try drawing on top, then you'll immediately situate your gardener in some sort of gardening setting. So when my ink line is dry, I'll just block in a little bit of wash to model the figure with light and dark shapes. So these are some of the materials and the approaches we'll take in the studio on Monday morning. I'll record that Zoom session and put it onto YouTube and send you all a link for those that aren't able either to come to the studio or to take part on Zoom live. And I'll also attach the photographs that I'm working with. Some of you might remember they're from a session we did during lockdown on the same theme. So I've got some photographs of my children in the garden that you could work with if they're of use to you. So good luck. The point of this, I don't know if I said it at the beginning, but really is to collect a set of figure drawings, which we'll gradually put to work in some compositions, bringing together the garden and the gardener. All right, so see you soon. Bye-bye.